Now recognizes gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Secretary Austin, you were just asked a question with respect to Afghanistan, and you were not given the opportunity to complete your answer. If you would like to, I'd like to give you that opportunity to complete your answer right now. Is there anything else you'd like to say on the subject, sir?
Only to say that I remain very proud of the tremendous work and the sacrifices that our troops made and throughout our efforts in Afghanistan, but especially at the end as they worked hard to evacuate over 124,000 people from there. And work continues to ensure that the people that have helped us in Afghanistan, and if they want to repatriate to the United States or someplace else, we can help them. So.
As someone who served in Afghanistan, I appreciate your remarks, sir. Chairman Milley, with respect to Bakhmut, which you mentioned earlier, it appears that Russia is still unable to accomplish core strategic objectives. It is frankly remarkable to me that Bakhmut still stands and is still owned by the Ukrainians. Do you share the perspective that the failure of Russia after going all out to capture this town is indicative of the fact that we're still facing, that the Ukrainians rather are still facing the same deeply incompetent military that they were facing last year? Or is this a special brand of incompetence that we're seeing with respect to this particular military effort?
I think the Russians are struggling in a big way with command and control, logistics, sustainment, basic tactical doctrine, but also training. These forces are very undertrained. They're essentially doing frontal assaults into machine gun positions, et cetera, and they're getting slaughtered. The Russian troops are. The Ukrainians are doing a very effective area defense that is proven to be very costly to the Russians. For about the last 20, 21 days, the Russians have not made any progress whatsoever in and around Bakhmut. So it's a slaughter fest for the Russians. They're getting hammered in the vicinity of Bakhmut, and the Ukrainians have fought very, very well. That's also true across the entire frontline trace, from Crimea all the way down to Kherson. The Ukrainians have fought a remarkable defensive fight, and the Russians have not achieved their strategic objectives.
Do you see the Russian objectives with respect to Bakhmut as being part of their offensive, or would you say this is a special effort and the broader offensive has yet to begin?
No, I think it's the latter. I think I think the Russian offensive, if you will, began some time ago, and it has had fits and starts, and it has not achieved the momentum and success that they expected it to achieve.
If I could ask you a broader question, which you may not be able to answer. If we had never supported the Ukrainians at all, would Russia have conquered Ukraine by now?
I think without Western support, first of all, I think the Ukrainian people, their will is indomitable. These are the same people, they're the sons and grandsons of the folks who fought Stalin and Zhukov for 10 years from 1945 to 1955. So the Ukrainians are not going to be easily conquered no matter what. If they're fighting with pitchforks and spears, they're going to fight back. But having said that, they would have probably lost considerably more ground without Western assistance. There's no question in my mind about that. So I think Western assistance has been critical to the Ukrainians being able to defend themselves.
With respect to Putin, seems to me, seems to a lot of folks, very clear that he's a war criminal, lots of evidence for this, and yet there are plenty of people in this country who still don't see it that way, who see Putin as basically a national leader pursuing national interests. If you could speak to those folks and give us your sense on his status as a war criminal, that would be appreciated.
I think the war itself is illegal. It undermines one of the first principles that were established after World War II that underwrites the so-called rules-based international order that is part of the United Nations, for example, which is wars of aggression, which are unprovoked, not in the cause of defense, where large countries then use their military force to attack smaller countries, not in the defense of their own nation. And Ukraine presented no military threat whatsoever to Russia, and yet he lined up 170, 100, or 200,000 troops, multiple divisions, multiple axes of advance, and he conducted a major league war of aggression. A war of aggression in and of itself is a war crime. And then, of course, you've got the actual war crimes in many of the cities and towns. When you bomb and shell civilian cities, when you bomb and shell civilian infrastructure, when you're killing kids and women and children, all of that is war crimes, and their units, their unit commanders, all the way up the chain are committing war crimes. The Russian forces are, and it's a tragic unfolding of events, but it's true. There's a lot of war crimes being committed by the Russian forces in Ukraine.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Strong, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.